Oh, wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Thanks for tuning in once again. Today we're just gonna read a little bit about the so-called Parthian Empire and the Parthians, right? A little bit of perspective that maybe most people don't have about this ancient civilization or empire. Here we're at the Met Museum.org. Okay, some artifacts here of the Parthian Empire. You guys can see they had coins. Look at this one right here, looking like a Pope's hat, almost like a crescent moon. All right, and keep going. Some more. Look at the horn. Some artifacts. Some pretty cool earrings in gold. All right, we got some. Says a spout in the form of a man's head. Parthian art. Okay. And then look at this one right here. All right. Do you guys see the hair? That's an afro. Okay. Flat nose. I'm even going to say this fragmentary stone is called a standing man, Parthian, 2nd century. So the fragmentary stone relief of a standing man is a product of the resurgence of an Eastern aesthetic in Parthian art. The style that exemplifies is characterized by strict frontality and a concentration on linear details. Okay, it says here, his prominent eyes are flat and outlined with ridges. The nose is also flat. His hair is executed in tiers of thick spirals. That's how they're describing woolly hair, right? Woolly hair, so-called afro. Thick spirals. The worshipper wears a belted tunic decorated with a row of lozenges, each containing a circle. A braid of spirals run down the front of his garment and others trim the cuffs. 2 items are tucked under his belt. In his left hand, he holds an object. At his right hip, another object is depicted, perhaps meant as a sword. Okay. Votive images of worshippers similar to this one, just like this one, adorn the terraces of sanctuary complexes such as those at Bar-e Neshade and Masjid Suleiman, both in the Iranian province of Khuzestan, right? So we're talking about an area here in Iran, all right, when we're talking about Parthians, so-called Persian area too as well. And here's another, says right on with female head. She got braids all over her hair. All right, so just again, we're going to be talking about Parthia. It's a historical region, they're saying, in Greater Iran. Yeah, I would say. I'm sure it had connections with the farthest east as well, which was or India Superior, North America. More land was connected from Asia to America. It was conquered and subjugated by the Empire of the Medes during the 7th century BC. It was incorporated into the subsequent Achaemenid Empire under the Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BC and formed part of the Hellenistic Seleucid Empire. Hellenistic Seleucid. After the 4th century BC conquest of Alexander the Great. All right. The region later served as the political and cultural base of the Eastern Iranian Parthians, people and Arsidic dynasties, rulers of the Parthian Empire. All right, so just a brief history. This is kind of what you get if you just kind of do a quick research on Google. All right. World History Encyclopedia, worldhistory.org says Parthia. They ruled around 247 BC to 224 CE, according to their chronologies, right? According to their chronologies, this could be all wrong. Could have been much sooner or whatever. Creating a vast empire that stretched from the Mediterranean in the west to India and China in the east. East of the Caspian Sea, there emerged from the steppes of Central Asia a nomadic Scythian, also their Scythian tribe called the Parni, later called the Parthians, and taking over the Seleucid Empire and fending off the Romans. Also, they were fighting against the Romans, just like Israelites did too, right? They were kind of beefing. The Romans were conquering Semitic people. So they were also being at war with the Romans. They established themselves as a superpower in their own right, a superpower, with a unique and extremely successful fighting style. The vast area they conquered put them in contact with goods and cultural influences from different parts of their empire. From these influences, the Parthians not only blended architectural styles to make their own Parthian architecture, but they also created their own unique Parthian art and dress. So right here says statue of a military commander from Hatra. So this is a Parthian, and with them they have a lot of the cone heads, the cone head helmets or hats or gear. Parthians, a lot of that is in Persia as well. And I just like to remind everybody that we just read recently, right, in the book, The Lost Pyramids of Rock Lake, in Wisconsin. The author was saying how they found in Aztlan the same a figurine stone depicting a man with a cone head, just like Quetzalcoatl. Just like Quetzalcoatl, if you guys can see here, Quetzalcoatl is always depicted a lot of the times with a cone head, and even with jaguar cone heads, right? So this one right here, Tovar Codex, Quetzalcoatl, El Dios Azteca, right? Let's get a close up. You see cone head. You guys can see cone head. Go back to the Parthian cone hat. So this is what Frank Joseph was saying in his book, Lost Pyramids of Wisconsin. They had the same style, the Aztlaners, and a lot of the North American ancient people, because they found it in their pottery, similar to Quetzalcoatl, how Quetzalcoatl's depicted, showing a connection. So why not? Wouldn't this be also a connection? All right. So basically, this is kind of like what you get mainstream. You don't get really much of their origin. They don't really know. They just know they might be related to the so-called Scythians. What did we learn about the so-called Scythians, guys, recently? That's why I was doing a refresh, is that many of them are the sons of Isaac, the Sakai. The Scythians came out of the Sakai. Sakai means sons of Isaac, which a lot of them, as they move into Europe, they become the Saxons, which literally means sons of Isaac. When we talk about Isaac, we're talking about a son of Abraham. He had two, he had Isaac and Ishmael. So sons of Isaac could include Jacob and his descendants, but also include Jacob's brother Esau. So Edomites and stuff also could be referred to sons of Isaac, because they come from Isaac as well. So there's a lot of mixture there and confusion and things going on, and people trying to claim, hey, I'm this, I'm that, just because they're being referred to as Saxon, right? So a lot to understand, but today we're going to actually get into a specific book on the Parthians, a whole different perspective of who they might be, and it's going to corroborate. You guys are going to see with what we learned about the Saxons, what that means with the sons of Isaac. And we're going to get into what this book is called, Parthia, the Forgotten Ancient Superpower and its role in biblical history. And then they're showing this some technology they had. It's going to be talking about this by Stephen M. Collins. And this is a Parthian battery. They're telling you a battery, huh? So we go into chapter 1 of this book. It says here, Parthia, an Israelite empire rises in Asia. Israelite. Oh, let's see what he's going to say. Many readers may ask the question, who or what was Parthia? I know a lot of you are saying, I never heard of these people. It is a testimony to the woeful lack of historical knowledge in the modern world that this question could even be asked. Parthia was a vast ancient empire which ruled in Asia at the same time that the Roman Empire ruled over the Mediterranean region. All right, so, we're to think that all this is happening only in that side of the world. Could it also be happening in locations in America, right? These empires ruling. Although Rome launched many wars of imperial aggression against Parthia, none succeeded in their arms of subjugating the Parthians. Conversely, Parthia administered many crushing defeats to Roman armies, as these two ancient superpowers opposed each other for centuries. In spite of the fact that much is known about Parthia's history, it is almost totally ignored in history texts. How accurate a picture of ancient history would we have if textbooks dwelt extensively on Parthia's empire and neglected to mention Rome? It would yield a very distorted view of ancient history. Yet we now have an equally distorted view of world history as a result of Parthia's omission from texts on ancient history. So he's trying to say is like it was really downplayed how much of a superpower and influence they had in history. And once we find out that they have a lot of Israelite influence and origin, you understand why. The famous 19th century historian George Rawlinson wrote two books extensively documenting the history of the Parthian Empire. They were entitled Parthia, the Sixth Great Oriental Monarchy. The Greco-Roman classical writers record a voluminous amount of information about Parthia, and Rawlinson wrote about the defective view of history, defective hijacked view of history, which resulted from ignoring Parthia's major role in world history. He introduces the Sixth Great Oriental Monarchy with these words. The picture of the world during the Roman period put before students in histories of Rome was defective, not to say false. All right, you guys hear that? I told you about how they glorified the so-called Roman and Greek civilization and history and culture. They glorified it. They didn't really exist like that. And he's letting you know right now. This Rawlinson, not just this author, he's quoting Rawlinson, a very famous historian, quoted in a lot of university and college textbooks, right? He's letting you know the histories of Rome is defective, if not to say false, literally false, in its omission to recognize the real position of Parthia as a counterpoise to the power of Rome, a rival state dividing with Rome the attention of mankind and the sovereignty of the known earth. Writers of Roman history have been too much in the habit of representing Rome as a universal monarchy, a power unchecked, having no other limits than those of the civilized world. The truth seemed to be that, from the first to the last, there was always in the world a second power, civilized or semi-civilized, which in true sense balanced Rome, acted as a counterpoise and a check. This power, for nearly 3 centuries, from BC 64 to AD 225, was Parthia, emphasis added. The fact that Rome had equal rivals in the ancient world will surprise many readers. This chapter and the following chapter will attempt to restore a balanced perspective on ancient history by a thorough discussion of the origins and history of Parthia. The abysmal lack of information on Parthia results from the fact that history has been taught almost exclusively from an ethnocentric Greco-Roman perspective. This is what I've been trying to tell you guys. It's been glorified, been very biased, exaggerated. The preoccupation with Greco-Roman history has led to major misunderstandings about the realities of the ancient world. In the previous books of this series in Israelite history, and the books we're going to definitely get into, they have a lot of good drop. He repeats a lot of things we already know, but we're going to go over it anyways when we have to. We learned that widespread ignorance about Phoenicia and Carthaginian history has led to modern man's unawareness of the role of North America in ancient history. Body bag for the illusion, you see? He's letting you know straight up, Phoenician, Carthaginian has something to do with North America, India Superior, the farthest east. This was due to the fact that the Phoenician and Carthaginian fleets controlled Gibraltar and for almost a millennium denied the Greco-Romans any maritime access to the lands beyond the Mediterranean Sea. Remember, they had it secret. They kept that America. They were trading back and forth. So-called Phoenicians. Who's that? That includes a lot of Israelites. That includes a lot of nations, a seafaring peoples, a society, possibly. They had the knowledge, right? So as a result, Greece and Rome were far less advanced than the Phoenicians and Carthaginians in nautical skills and understanding world geography. So-called Phoenicians, so-called Carthaginians. Also, we learned in the previous book that the Scythians, the Sakai, listen to this, were a civilized people, and that their power was so great that they devastated the Assyrian Empire and twice defeated the Persian Empire. Yet you read almost nothing about them in history texts either. Not much is known about the Sakai or sons of Isaac. That's what it literally means, sons of Isaac. We shall now learn that modern man's neglect of Parthian history has led to more gross misunderstandings about the ancient world. These misunderstandings affect us today. The reader will see in the fourth book of this series how our misunderstanding about ancient history distort our perceptions of what is really happening in today's world events. All right, so I just want to say also that, in the Sakai, or when it comes to the Scythians, with the Scythians, I would say, I think, in my opinion, a lot of the Sumerians mixed in with them when they were up there in that region of the Caspian Black Sea. The Sumerians were there as well, and they were thought to have been Scythians, but they weren't. We've read this before in the Sumerian videos. They were separate and connected to them somehow as well, but they were their own separate people. They didn't just come out of the Scythians. They did live with or amongst and possibly mix with some of the sons of Isaac, the Sumerians, but eventually, I believe these people, a lot of these Sumerians also became part of the Khazars, and that's the whole Khazar Empire around there as well. So they had a little Sumerian, maybe Scythian, a little bit, but doesn't mean these were the direct lines. There was bastard kids all over the place, right? Mixture did happen. So I just want to add that. So I wouldn't say all the Scythians are, straight up Israelites, but yeah, and majority the word, the phrase, the origin of the people, Sakai, Saxon, does mean sons of Isaac. Continuing. The Hebrew Israelite origins of Parthia. Who were the Parthians? There is no record of their presence in Asia at all until the Persians referred to them in the 6th century BC. And there is no mention of them in the Old Testament, or in the Assyrian inscriptions, or in the Zendavesta. The Persians called them the Pathva or Parthva, and named them as a subject people involved in a revolt in 521 BC. Herodotus mentions the Parthians as being one of the subject nations in the Medo-Persian army, which attacked Greece under Xerxes, the Persian king. So these were people that were subjugated. Almost like Israelites were subjugated, right? Herodotus also mentions that the Parthians were subjects of King Darius, and that they lived in an adjoining province to some of the Sakai. Those who have read the previous books in this series know that the Sakai were Scythians named after Isaac. Okay, we got a whole nother book. The Israelite patriarchs. I told you guys that Sakai means sons of Isaac. The Israelite patriarch. There's no other Isaac. Show me any other famous Isaac from his time period or before that. The Parthian homeland was located southeast of the Caspian Sea. The Parthians are clearly identified by historians as having a common origin with the Scythians. Rawlinson states there was a strong conviction on the part of those who came in contact with the Parthians that they were Scyths. And as the Scythian character of the Parthians is asserted in the strongest terms by the ancient writers, Rawlinson cites the classical historian Strabo, Justin, and Arrian in stating the manners of the Parthians had They tell us much that was Scythic in them. Their language was half Scythic, half Median. They armed themselves in the Scythic fashion. They were Scyths in descent, in habits, in character. All right. So don't they say a lot of the so-called Scottish and all these and Scotia and Teffi, these are Scythic in origin, or sons of Isaac. It's the same kind of background these people have in the past, ancient, connected. The Scythian origin of the Parthians is further confirmed by the fact that many times in their history, the Parthians sought the aid of the Scythians in various wars. They're the same peoples. That's why ousted Parthian kings sometimes sought asylum in Scythia as their family. This recurrent Parthian reliance on the Sakai tribes, sons of Isaac, of Scythia, in times of trouble confirms that the Parthians and Scythians were natural allies. There is a record from Diodorus, right? Diodorus, same one who said Cadmus and Danan are Israelites. We read his book, we read his writings that came out of Egypt, right? So Diodorus, a so-called Greek historian of the 1st century BC, that the Parthians had passed from the dominion of the Assyrians to that of the Medes, to a similar position under the Persians. All right, so didn't Israelites get exported and put into captivity by the Assyrians in the Assyrian Empire? Rawlinson also notes concerning the Parthians, it was believed that their name meant exiles. All right, exiles weren't Israelite exiles in Assyria. Hence, it was necessary to suppose that they had migrated into their country from some portion of Scythia. The previous book documented that the Assyrians exiled 2 waves of Israelite captives into Asia, and that some of them were located in the cities of Medes. After the fall of Assyria's empire, it is logical that some Asian Israelites would come under the dominion of the Medes and Persians. The above evidence that Parthia's language was half Median indicates that the Parthians had lived in very close proximity to the Medes for a considerable length of time. Some of the Israel's exiles were placed in the cities of the Medes. 2 Kings 17:6, all right, stated so, confirming that many Israelites would have lived among the Medes and become familiar with the Medes language. The last chapter of the previous book provided abundant evidence that the Sakai, the Scythians, were relocated members of the 10 tribes of Israel, sons of Isaac, since ancient historians affirm the Parthians were kinsmen of the Sakai Scythians, and since there is no record of any Parthians being in Asia until after the Israelites were placed there, it is evident that the Parthians were also part of the 10 tribes of Israel. The fact that ancient writers regarded them as a nation of exiles supports this identification. The 10 tribes of Israel in their Asian locations were indeed there as exiles from Palestine, or the real Holy Land, the real Canaan, America. All right. It has a map here showing a little bit of their area. And it says, Rawlinson cites an account of the ancient historian Diodorus that the Parthians revolted from the Medes and placed themselves under Scythian protection. This confirms that from the time of their first efforts to gain independence, the Parthians looked to the Scythians as their natural protectors and liberators. The Encyclopedia Britannica records that the alphabets in use in Persia, at least from the time of the Arsacid dynasty onwards, are based upon the Aramaic. The earliest record of Aramaic go back to about 800 BC and were found in northern Syria. Other developments of Aramaic are modern square Hebrew. Okay? It's a Semitic language meaning coming from Shem. Why? Aramaic, Aram, right? Aram is a son of Shem. That's why they spoke a similar Hebrew type language, or because they're coming from the mother tongue. Shem is son of Noah, language that Noah spoke, and the antediluvians. The Arsacid dynasty refers to the Parthian kings. That the Parthians utilized an Aramaic alphabet, again, Aram, son of Shem, a Shemitic alphabet, yeah, Aram is a son of Shem, related to Hebrew. That's why it's related, because Arphaxad and Aram were brothers. They spoke the language that the peoples passed down to them, Noah, right? And the original mother tongue, which later also became known as Hebrew, confirms that the Parthians originated in the region of Syria and Palestine, or the real Holy Land Canaan, where the Aramaic language developed. Their use of a Semitic alphabet clearly indicates that the Parthians had a Semitic racial and linguistic origin. Also, since ancient historians strongly maintain that the Parthians were a Scythian people, the Semitic nature of Parthia's language reinforces, listen, the Semitic origin of the Scythians, sons of Isaac. That the Parthian language was related to the Hebrew language strongly indicates that the Parthians were the descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel who had been relocated into Media and other Asian regions. What little is preserved of the Parthian language confirms a Semitic origin for the Parthians. Rawlinson states that the Parthian word for city was Karta or Kerta. Karta, Kartash, right? Kerta, Karta, Kartash. In the previous book, the Semitic Israelite origin of Carthage was discussed. Listen. And it was noted that the original Semitic name of Carthage was Kirjath Hadeshkath. The Semitic name of Carthage is also rendered as Kart, Hadash, meaning new city. The Semitic origin of Carthage is well known, and both the Carthaginians and Parthians use the word Kart for city, indicating that they both shared a common Semitic origin. Carthaginians, huh? We know that Colombia has Cartagena as one of their major cities. That is literally Carthage. And Costa Rica, our first capital was Cartago, which also translates to Carthage. All right. Who's to say those weren't the original locations or part of the empire? So that common origin was in the old kingdom of Israel called Phoenicia by the Greeks. All right. So again, the Semitic origin of Carthage is well known, and both the Carthaginians and Parthians use the word Cart for city, indicating that they both shared a common Semitic origin. That common origin was in the old kingdom of Israel, called Phoenicia by the Greeks, or Canaan, or the real Holy Land here in America. In the next chapter, we shall examine the role of the Parthian Magi. An influential portion of Parthia's ruling classes, the Magi, or Druids, Chaldean Magi, and early Carthaginian ruler was named Mago. Look at that. Mago means Magi in Spanish. Again, indicating a common linguistic heritage with the Parthians. A modern website on Parthia notes the following about the Parthian language. The Parthians used the Aramaic alphabet for writing. All right, you guys hear that? Another example is the Aramaic title. MLK, King, MLK, or King of Kings, right? Melech, King of Kings, like what Judah had. That was one of the titles the line of Judah carried. They also use the word Bri, or Bra equals my son in Aramaic. The Parthian Aramaic word for king, Malak, MLK, is also the Hebrew word for king, and it appears over 2,500 times in the Bible. The word Brai is an obvious cognate word for the Hebrew word Bra or Bar, which also is translated son in the Bible. The Aramaic Parthian or Semitic Parthian linguistic link could just be as easily be called a Hebrew Parthian link, but establishment sources are not likely to acknowledge that connection. They ain't going to try to say that because they don't want you thinking like that. Doing so will lead to the inescapable racial ethnic link between the Parthians and the tribes of Israel who had been transplanted into Asia. A prominent family of Parthians was called the Suren family, and one of their hereditary rights was to crown Parthian kings. The word Suren, it also appears as Surena or Surenas, is a Hebrew composite word. Sureña, Surena, Sureña. This is part of Mexico. People they call Sureños, right? Surena. I don't know if it's related. I'm just saying. Because Sureños means southern people, right? Sur. It also appears that Surena and Surenas is a Hebrew composite word. The Hebrew word Sud includes the meaning reign or make princess. The Hebrew word En, rendered ayin, means eye, sight, or presence. The Parthian name Suren is Hebrew for a person whose present makes princes or reigns in his eyesight. The Parthian Sudan did exactly what the Hebrew word signified, showing the parallels between the Hebrew and the Parthian language were no coincidence. With the strong linguistic relationship between the Hebrew and Parthian exists if the Parthians had a Mongoloid origin from the interior of Asia. So this is what they try to say the Parthians are, Mongols, you see? Just like they try to say your ancestors in America are all Mongols. Listen to the hijack. Obviously, the answer is no. However, linguistic links to the Hebrew language as found among the Parthians are exactly what we should find among the descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel who were displaced to Asia. Later, we shall also see that many of the personal and place names of the Parthians were not merely Semitic, but specifically Israelite in nature. After Persia's empire fell, Parthia was ruled by the Greeks under Alexander the Great. When Alexander's kingdom was divided, after his early death, Parthia was placed in the Seleucid Greek Empire. There was an apparent fulfillment of an obscure biblical prophecy about the house of Israel, the 10 tribes, at the time that Alexander the Great destroyed the Persian Empire. In Ezekiel 4:35, an unusual prophecy is found in which God instructs Ezekiel to do the following. This shall be a sign to the house of Israel. Lie upon thy left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it. According to the number of days that shall lie upon it, thou shalt bear their iniquity. For I have laid upon thee the years of their iniquity, according to the number of days 390 days. So shalt thou bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. For centuries, the Parthians had been captives of the Assyrians. Look at that coincidence, right? Just like Israelites, right? In the Bible tells you, right? Medes and Persians. So not just the Assyrians, but the Medes and the Persians. The Israelite kingdom ended when Samaria fell in 721 BC. The kingdom of Israel was the house of Israel, all right? These were 10 tribes, the northern tribes, remember? Different than Judah and Benjamin, who they had separated, right? The northern 10 tribes. So if a 390-year punishment began at the fall of Samaria, a singular event should occur in the year 331 BC, 721 BC, 390 years equal 331 BC. So, this is according to what they tell us chronology. So he's trying to make sense out of it, right? In that year, one of history's major turning points occurred, and it released the Israelites from their centuries of captivity. It was also predicted in biblical prophecy. Daniel 8:5-22 prophesies that a great Grecian king would destroy the Medo-Persian Empire, and that 4 kingdoms would replace his empire. Alexander the Great fulfilled this prophecy. All right, so again, so-called Grecian. Was Alexander the Great really a Grecian? Alexandrus Rus? Was he possibly also of Israelite or Hebrew Semitic blood? All this future video is going to break down. And why is he helping and invading Medes, right? And ending and almost literally that helped the Israelites get out of captivity, or even the Parthians. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great's outnumbered army routed the Persian army of Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela, also known as the Battle of Arbela. After that battle, the Persian Empire disintegrated, releasing its grip on many captive nations. The Battle of Gaugamela ended the captivity of the Israelites to the Medo-Persian Empire, exactly 390 years after the fall of Samaria. Technically, the Parthians were still within Alexander the Great's Macedonian Empire. All right. However, Alexander's Macedonians conquered the Persian Empire with a small army, leaving a few troops to garrison or control conquered nations. Also, Alexander was seen as a liberator by many of the nations freed from the Persian rule. The Parthians saw Alexander as a liberator, right? He helped them. All right. After conquering Persia, Alexander adopted Asian customs and actively recruited soldiers into his army from the Asian nations that had been under the Persian yoke. The March 2000 issue of National Geographic magazine includes an article on Alexander's conquest of the Persian Empire and the Battle of Gaugamela. That article points out that by 327 BC, Alexander's army of 75,000 men included 60,000 Asiatic recruits and only 50,000 Macedonians. A Persian army which had unsuccessfully invaded the Scythians in the 6th century BC numbered 700,000 men. So Alexander's army was puny in size compared to the gigantic armies of the Persians. The small size of Alexander's army and the fact that it came to be composed mostly of Asians confirms that many nations ruled by Persia as captives were happy to serve as Alexander's allies. All right. This testifies that the Asian nations, including the Israelites who had been freed by Alexander from Persian rule, enjoyed considerable local independence as long as they acknowledged Alexander's supremacy. Hellenistic, Hasmonean Israelites, right? Alexander died a few years later, and 4 kingdoms replaced his empire, each headed by one of Alexander's generals. This fulfilled the Daniel 8:22 prophecy that 4 weaker kingdoms would supplant Alexander's empire. The Parthians were within the territory of the Seleucid Greek Empire, and they revolted after being vassals of the Seleucid king for a few decades, right? So come on now, guys, come like this matches with even the Maccabee Wars, right, and all that, the Seleucids and all the it's the same peoples. That's why. So here it says in Hosea 1:10, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, just like the sand, numerous, just like the sand of the sea, guys, numerous, just like the stars in the universe, numerous, which cannot be measured nor numbered. You can't measure. You can't say, oh, I'm Israelite, he's not. You don't know because it's numerous. I've been trying to tell you guys. Hosea is Joshua. Joshua is Hosea. Hosea is Joshua. That's Joshua letting you know, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. Wow, that's a good one right there. So it says in 256 BC, some sources put the date at 250 BC, Parthia and Bactria revolted against Seleucid Greek rule and declared their independence. There are conflicting details about this Parthian uprising, but there appears to be a consensus that the revolts and independence of Parthia and Bactria were intertwined. Some historians record that Arsaces, the first king of the Parthians, was a Bactrian, but most accounts agree that he was the chieftain of a Scythian tribe who slew the Greek satrap and liberated his Parthian kinsmen. And we're going to run into this name Arsaces, I believe, when it comes to the genealogy of Brutus, first king of Britain, and his relation to, we're going to get into all this, right, in future videos, Darda, or Dardanus, the first king of Troy, who comes from the line of Sarah, basically Judah, all right? So the name of Arsaces, the first Parthian king and founder of Parthia's dynasty, included the name of Israelite patriarch Isaac. Arsaces, Arsak, Arsaki, Sakae. It says here the tribe of Ephraim leads Parthia. Listen to this. This is deep right here. So Hosea 1:6-10. God promised that he would make the Israelites too numerous to count after he expelled them from Palestine, or the Holy Land, right? The Jewish historian Josephus confirmed that the population of the 10 tribes was exceedingly numerous by the 1st century AD. With the Israelites' population increasing explosively, they came to be known by their clan names as well as their tribal names, right? And also the emblems, right? We went over this yesterday. Portions of the Bible record genealogies of ancient families and the tribes of Israel. Some call these sections the Begats, and they are often regarded as the most boring part of the Bible. However, for historical research, these sections can be invaluable. These genealogies preserve the names of the individual clans, sub-tribes of the tribes of Israel, and some of these names can be located in geographic and proper names in the post-exilic period, all right? For example, Numbers 26 35, 36 records that 3 clans of the Israelite tribe of Ephraim were named the Bakrites. Listen, Bactria, Bakrites, and the Eranites, and the Tahanites. Tahanites, listen. So this is stuff people ignore and don't they don't know nothing about this. Where did all these people end up, you think? These are tribes of Ephraim. The Seleucid province of Bactria, which revolted along with Parthia, these are kindred nations. That's what he's trying to tell you. Bore the name of one of the clans of Ephraim in a Hellenized form. In a Hellenized form. An Israelite origin for Bactria is supported by an account from Richard Fry's book, The Heritage of Persia, which state that the Bactrian language was related to the Saka. That's the same as the Sakai. The Saka is the Sakai, sons of Isaac, or at least underwent strong influence from Saka tongues. Remember, I just read the book, The Anglo-Saxons, Israelites, or the Saxon race, and how it broke down all the Saka-related nations, Sakai, Scythian, and the different nations that carried the word. Saka was one of them. The Persian word Saka referred to the Sakai, Scythians, who again are the sons of Isaac. All right. So this is all future video. We're going to connect all this. We're going to keep trying to connect, repeat it so we can get it down. All right. So we can have a clear perspective, a strong foundation, a solid foundation. The record that the Bactrians welcomed a Scythian ruler who freed them from a Greek satrap, and the fact that the Bactrians shared a linguistic heritage with the Parthians argues that the Bactrians were also Sakai or Saka, who had descended from the 10 tribes of Israel, sons of Isaac. Henry Rawlinson in his book Bactria states, there seems to be very little doubt that the population of Bactria was largely Scythian, and cites Justin, a classical author who wrote, the Parthian Empire was founded by the Scythians. Numbers 26:36 also notes that another clan of the tribe of Ephraim descended from Iran, listen, and was known as the Iranites. All right, this is an Ephraim tribe, Ephraim people, a group of people known as the Iranians. Listen, Iranian was present in the region of ancient Persia and Parthia. So what is an Iranian originally? Iranians, who came out of Iranites or Iran, a son of Ephraim. Listen, Assyria had transplanted the defenders of Samaria and Ephraimite city into the cities of the Medes. Therefore, we should expect to see Ephraimite names in the Medo-Persian region. The Iranians manifested the exact Hebrew name of one of the clans of Ephraim in the area of Medo-Persia. This name has survived into modern time as the English name for modern Persia is Iran. That's what I was just saying. All right, this is a major drop here. I'm learning, guys. I'm remembering. You know, a lot of the Bible is not in my head solidly, so I can't remember all these nations. Oh yeah, the Iranians, that's where you get Iran from. Well, Iran, Iran, Ireland. This is deep right here. So Iran was a descendant of Ephraim. That's where we get eventually the word Iran, guys. Come on. The term Iran and Iran are interchangeable. The Encyclopedia Britannica in its index section simply states Iran. See Iran. All right? Iran, see Iran. That's what Encyclopedia Britannica is telling you. The same thing. The capital of Iran or Iran, a son of Ephraim, Tehran, Iran also preserves the name of this Ephraimite clan. This book does not assert or imply that modern Iranians are Israelites. All right, that's a big one right there. Thanks for clearing that up, author. Same thing I'd be trying to tell you guys. Don't compare ancient peoples to the modern peoples who have those titles. It's not always the same. Not always the same. It becomes a geographic location, the name. And so people born in this place, even if they have no Israelite blood, are called Iranians today, right? But a lot of them do have ancient Israelite blood. right? So again, this book does not assert or imply that modern Iranians are Israelites, and it is clear from history that modern Iranians are principally Middle Persian in racial origin. However, the name Iran is derived from the name of a clan of Ephraim, the 12 tribes of Israel, okay, who were placed in Middle Persian territory by the Assyrians and lived there for many centuries, all right? Major drop. Most historical accounts assume that the name Iran originated from the term Aryan. You guys hear that? Iran, Aryan might actually come from Iran. However, historical accounts generally have not considered an Israelite alternative for the origin of the Iranians. Yeah, they've always neglected that. Now we know that it has nothing to do with more of a people, but like a noble. Aryan meant like a noble person. It might even mean Iran, passable from the line of Iran, who got the blessing, right? Joseph got the blessing, right? So Ephraim would have the blessing too, his son. So indeed, historical accounts seem unwilling to even look for the large masses of Israelites who were relocated into Asia. They just want you to forget about it. They want you to think that's just Bible stories and religion. They don't want you to think it's real history, what we've been trying to tell you. And don't mix Old Testament of the Torah with the New Testament religious allegorical Roman hijack and duplications. The case for an Israelite origin for the Iranians is very strong. Not only are the Iranians found in Middle Persia, the correct geographical location where Israelite tribes and clans were placed, but there were many other ancient names in that region with an Israelite origin. There is evidence of considerable Semitic influence in ancient Persia, and commenting on the ancient Pahlavi or Pahlavi language of Parthia, Sanedi Ragosin states, Pahlavi does not seem to be Persian at all, but rather Semitic. That is, an enormous proportion of the words, nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions are Semitic, while the grammar and construction are Iranian. Emphasis added. All right, again, many people telling you the same thing. The obvious reason why Pahlavi, the Parthian language, had such strong Semitic content is that the Assyrians forcibly resettled a large portion of the 10 tribes of Israel, a Semitic nation, in Middle Persian areas. Additionally, large numbers of so-called Jews were settled in Mesopotamia, or Hebrew or Israelites in Mesopotamia by the Assyrians and Babylonians, right? Babylon exiled exilarchs, right? The descendants of those captive Israelites later became part of the Persian Empire. A lot of these became known as so-called Persians. Indeed, many Israelites or Hebrews, Daniel, Esther, Mordecai, listen, Nehemiah, and Ezra, right? Who's Ezra? Didn't Ezra write about the captivity of the 10 lost tribes in Assyria? That's why he was one of them, they're going to tell you, had very high governmental positions in the Persian Empire. Remember Daniel? Who's Daniel? He was a Babylonian exilarch. He was in captivity when he wrote his book. He might be the son of David. David had a son named Chileab or Daniel. That same person, Chileab, is Daniel. Look it up. That possible. Remember, he was of the royal lines. Daniel was of the royal lines. They don't tell you from who, but obviously, and he had a very important role in the Persian Empire, as they're telling you here. Come on now. Since both the Jews and the more numerous Israelites were Semites, they influenced the language of Persia in a Semitic direction. Later, when the Parthians, descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel, ruled Persia for centuries, their Semitic language was the dominant language in Persia. The Encyclopedia Britannica notes that Semitic nature of the Parthian Pahlavi language. The name Pahlavi or Pahlavi, Levi, right? Levi, which means Parthian. Why does their language have the word Levi in it, right? Leviticus, Levi, can be traced back for many centuries. The great peculiarity of the language is that though it is Iranian, it is full of Semitic, Aramaic words, okay? And it has the word Levi in it. Come on now. It is not at all peculiar in parentheses that Pahlavi, the language of the Parthians, had strong Semitic content. The reason is that the Parthians were Semites, descended from the tribe of Israel. Even the name of the Parthian language, Pahlavi or Pevlevi or Levi, contains the name of Levi, one of the tribes of Israel. Come on now. The fact that the Iranian language had strong Semitic content confirmed the Iranians were Semites, not Aryans. Because supposedly Aryans are supposed to be white. So you got to dodge the hijack because they are Aryans still, or noble people of royal. In some historical accounts, the Dahanites, another Scythian clan, had a role in the founding of Parthia. Danites, they are likely the Tahanites, the third clan of the Ephraimites, mentioned in Numbers 26:35. If the Dahanites were the Tahanites of Ephraim, the D and the T are linguistically similar consonants. That's true. It would mean that Parthia independence began as a result of three clans of the tribe of Ephraim acting in concert. All right? Maybe mixing with Danites. They were seafarers all over that place. Remember my Danite video? So maybe the Tahanites mixing with Danites become the Tahanites. I'm just saying. But definitely, as you guys can see what he's correlating, it does almost sound, and it is interchangeable, the D and the T. It would mean that Parthia's independence began as a result of three clans of tribes of Ephraim acting on concert. The Bactrians, Iranians, and Dahanites were most likely the Ephraimite clans of the Bakrites, the Iranites, and the Tahanites. All right? Literally almost the same. If the Hebrew connection was limited to a single name, it could be considered a coincidence. But these multiple connections add further weight to the conclusion that these names had Israelite origin. In addition, the subsequent stability of Parthia indicates that its component clans were closely related and had much in common. This stability is understandable if the above clans were all part of the tribe of Ephraim. Since Ephraimite names clearly predominate in Parthia's origin, and since the Masagetai, look at how this all connects, guys, were one of the foremost tribes of their Scythian kinsmen, it indicates that Ephraim and Manasseh, the leading tribes of the old kingdom of Israel, the leading tribes, the sons of Joseph, and the inheritors of the birthright promise of Genesis 48 that included national greatness, were the dominant tribes of the Parthians and Scythians. Body bag for the illusion, respectively. No wonder that history records a close alliance existed between the Scythians and the Parthians. Ephraim and Manasseh were brother tribes who had descended from Joseph, the favorite son of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. All right. It also indicates how exceedingly numerous the Israelites had become in their new Asian homelands, that large regions of Asia came to be known by Israelite tribal and clan names. God had abundantly kept his promise in Hosea 1:10 to multiply the numbers of the 10 tribes of Israel after they were exiled from the Holy Land, from America, from the true promised land. The Parthians and Scythians were obviously the people written about by Josephus as the very numerous descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel. Josephus penned these words about the status of the 10 tribes of Israel in the 1st century AD. The 10 tribes are beyond Euphrates till now and are an immense multitude and not to be estimated by numbers. The evidence affirms the statement of Josephus at the very time that Josephus wrote those words. The Euphrates River was the recognized border between the Roman and the Parthian empires. For Josephus to write from his perspective within the Roman Empire that the 10 tribes were beyond the Euphrates River was another way of saying the 10 tribes were in Parthia, even as many Americans will recognize the phrase beyond the Rio Grande to be euphemism, meaning in Mexico. Many past efforts to locate the post-exilic 10 tribes of Israel have failed because of their minimalist expectations about the locating tiny bands of Israelites scattered in obscure places, based both on biblical prophecy and Josephus' secular accounts that the 10 tribes of Israel had a huge Asian population by the 1st century AD. The 10 tribes must be found among the biggest nations in Asia during the millennium after the fall of Samaria and during the lifetime of Josephus, aka Piso. Huh? Remember? That is exactly where the 10 tribes of Israel can be found. We have already seen that the Scythians and one of the largest masses of people in Asia were Israelites. We will now examine the additional evidence that the numerous and powerful Parthians were also Israelites. So it says here, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Okay, this is what I've been saying. The right to rule, not the birthright, but the right to rule, the scepter, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, and until him shall be the gathering of the people be, until the Most High come back. Genesis 49:10. It says here, King David's descendants ruled Parthia and Scythia. All right, again, we're in the book Parthia, the Forgotten Ancient Superpower and Its Role in Biblical History by Stephen Collins. This is from 2003 version, but there's other versions as well before that. So again, it says, King David's descendants ruled Parthia and Scythia. God foretold that the tribe of Judah would produce kings and rulers. The scepter promise of Genesis 49:10. And King David was promised that his descendants would always rule over the house of Israel. Jeremiah 33:17. Jeremiah's prophecy was made after the relocation of the house of Israel, the northern 10 tribes into Asia. Because Jeremiah's prophecy was made at a time when the 10 tribes were living in Asia, we should expect to find descendants of King David ruling over the 10 tribes of Israel in Asia. Throughout the Parthian, Scythian sphere of influence, kings are found with names based on the words Fares. All right, pay attention. Remember, I know a lot of you already know where this is going. We just learned about the two sons of Judah, right? So, again, a lot of kings are found with this name, the word Fares, or this word, a marker of David's royal bloodline. Matthew 1:36 confirms King David was a descendant of a Jewish patriarch named Phares. All right, so we don't need the New Testament to confirm that. It's written in the Torah, in the Book of Law, in the Old Testament. Right? We know he is from the line of Phares, not the line of Sarah, right? Okay, we just got all this right recently. That's why I had to redo these videos so I can get onto other books, more investigation now that we have a fresh take on it again. So, a Parthian Saka king, listen to this, who ruled in the area of West India, West Indies, huh? Was named Gondophares in the West Indies, huh? Gondophares, Fares, from the Fares line, and several kings ruling over the Scythian kingdom of Iberia. So just to be clear, this is not the same Iberian Peninsula. This is Iberia near, it says here, the Caucasus Mountain region. There was an Iberia there, guys. Were named Farasmanes, Faras, Perez, Fares, from the Fares line, or Perez. The second book in this series noted that the term Iberia is derived from the root word Eber. All right, we got that breakdown a lot already. The father of the Hebrews. Strabo records that the Asian Iberians were the kinsmen of the Scythians, whose Israelite origin has always been demonstrated. All right, Strabo said that. The above examples show that David's descendants of the house of Fares were ruling over widely separated nations of the 10 tribes of Israel in both the Caucasus Mountains and the region of modern India. So again, remember, put all the information, investigations we've done historically. Remember that the Khazars were in these regions too, right? The Sumerians, the Khazars, what I was saying, this is why they felt so connected to the Israelites and eventually learned from them and converted, guys, converted to Judaism. They were surrounded by them a lot of times. Also, many Parthian emperors had names indicating that they were also members of the Davidic line of Judah. Some of their names include the key consonants Fares, PHRS, and the Hellenized forms of their Parthian names. Parthian kings with the names Pharatis, right? Pharatis, Pharaotis, Pharatasis include the consonants of the root word PHRS. God remembered his promise to David by guiding world events to ensure, listen, that David's descendants ruled over many Israelite nations, Parthia, Saka, Scythia, and Iberian in Asia. Just like in Europe, again, not David, but Judah's, the scepter would always be with Judah, right? A lot of times, descendants of Judah ruled, is what I've been trying to tell you. They ended up ruling. God said they would. Most High said they would. How did David's descendants from the defunct kingdom of Judah come to rule over the descendants of the 10 tribes in Asia? God can easily intervene in world affairs to keep his promises, right? God works in mysterious ways, and the Bible indicates how it happened. In 2 Kings 2:24, 8:15, we read that one of the last kings of Judah, Jehoiakim, and his wives were carried captive to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. Listen, that happened. Was this the end of him? Did he just disappear? He had no children. His offspring didn't just mix over there and start ruling too, maybe? Was this the end of him? Hardly. 2 Kings 25, 27, 30 shows that after 37 years of captivity, a later king of Babylon did lift up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, out of prison. Listen, and he spake kindly to him and set his throne above the thrones of the kings that were with him in Babylon, allowed him to be king in that area, right? Descendant of Judah, right? This is deep, guys. The king of Babylon ruled the Babylonian Empire, but he was served by many subordinate rulers who were vassal kings over assigned areas. That a Babylonian king gave Joachim a throne indicates that Joachim was made a vassal king over part of the Babylonian Empire. Indeed, the account states that he was set above the other vassal kings, meaning this royal descendant of King David was given a prominent rulership position in the Babylonian Empire, since there were many descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel who were subjects of the Babylonian Empire. So they gave him a king that was one of them. That's kind of deep right there, which inherited them when it conquered Assyria. It is likely that Jehoiakim was made a ruler over Israelites within the Babylonian Empire, since Joachim was descended from both King David and the patriarch Pharez. His sons perpetuated a dynasty that ruled over portions of the 10 tribes, first as vassal kings and then later as kings of independent nations and empires. 1 Chronicles 3:16-24 records that the royal house of David did not die out after the fall of Jerusalem, all right? Indeed, these verses record that Jehoiakim fathered many sons and grandsons, listen, all of whom carried on the royal line of King David in Asia. David's house had no shortage of royal princes to rule over the descendants of the 10 tribes. Since the Babylonian king made Jehoiakim a favored vassal king, he likely set some of Jehoiakim's sons in positions of power as well. Perhaps the Babylonians felt that the captive nations of the Assyrians, whom they inherited as subjects, would exhibit less rebelliousness if they were given their own hereditary rulers as vassal kings. A search would have found Jehoiakim, an hereditary Israelite ruler from the tribe of Judah, alive in a prison. 37 years in prison would have made Jehoiakim a very grateful when he was not only released from prison but also installed as a favored vassal king in the Babylonian Empire, all right? Again, the Babylonian exiles. His descendants were vassal kings to the Babylonians, then the Medo-Persians, and finally became independent kings over the Parthian Empire. However, Jehoiakim's sons were not the only source of Davidic rulers over the 10 tribes of Israel. The kings of Iberia, often named Pharasmanes, listen, Phares, Mans, the Phares, I never put two and two together, right? In the Caucasus region near the Black Sea, were not captives of Assyria or Babylon. How did David's descendants come to rule in that region? One historical account states that the descendants of the 10 tribes who escaped Assyrian captivity by migrating northward into the Caucasus were led by a chief or prince whom they appointed. This group of Israelites fled Palestine before the fall of Samaria or the Holy Land, abandoning the last king of Israel to his fate. This indicates that they made a clean break with whatever dynasty was ruling Israel in its final days, and that a new hereditary prince was made the ruler over the escaping Israelites at the time they fled to the Caucasus. All right. And I think we got a little bit of this story when we're reading about the Khazars and how they ended up and found some real Hebrews, some real Israelites, listen, in the Caucasus, and they learned from them. Do you guys remember? And then they had converted. Remember, the king had run into them. Oh, this sounds like this is the people they're talking about, the people who they run into, a prince of the lands of Judah. Listen, this is matching what we're reading right there. This is why they decided to convert, guys. This is what I'm saying. At the time, they fled to the Caucasus. So check out this, the royal line of King David. We got Israel, Judah from Phares, David, Iberian Scythia, King Phares, Parthian Saka, Phares, Kondo Phares, Parthia Sakai, King Pharaotis, even Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh, the right to rule would always be with Judah, huh? Christ's lineage, Phares, oh, David, Jesus, all right, now that's the hijack. They added his Christianity. All right, so they fled to the Caucasus region. There was only one other Israelite dynasty from which a prince could have come. That dynasty was the bloodline of King David, whose descendants were still ruling over the kingdom of Judah. The fact that Iberia's rulers included the name of Phares argues that this migrating body of Israel's 10 tribes picked a prince of David's royal line as their new leader. They migrated in 724, 721 BC, and by 653 BC, a leader of a Scythian, listen, Sumerian Median alliance, all right? They're separate, right? The Sumerians are not Scythians, but they were in connections in that time. That's what I was saying earlier, guys. Put all the research together. We're going to go over it all again. We're going to try to make sense out of everything the more as we keep learning, right? So an alliance between Scythians, sons of Isaac, Sumerians, and Medians against Assyria was led by a person named Pharaotes. Huh. The name Pharaotes includes the root word PHRS, indicating a link to the David's royal line of Phares. This is deep. Even the Sumerians were under them for a while, huh? The name of Pharaotes is similar to the names of later Parthian kings, Pharatis or Pharatasis. This indicates that Pharaotes was a Scythian bearing a Parthian royal name, even though Parthia would not become independent for another 400 years. So that shows the link between the Parthians and Scythians. They had the same name for their rulers. It is apparent that the Davidic rulers of the line of Phares were ruling over Scythians about a century before Jehoiakim was made a vassal king of the Babylonians circa 555 BC. The above evidence confirms that after Judah fell, there was never a time when David did not have descendants ruling over some portion of the 10 tribes of Israel. All right, this is deep right here. This also confirms that Most High guided the destinies of the 10 tribes of Israel, even after they had left the Holy Land. Arsaces, the first king of Parthia, is credited with having a Scythian origin. When he liberated the Parthians from the Seleucid Greeks, so-called Greeks, his descendants ruled Parthia for the entirety of its existence, almost 5 centuries. Since Arsaces and his dynasty, the Arsacids, bore the name of Arsaces, and since some of the Arsacid rulers included the root word of Phares, PHRS, in their names, it is evident that Arsaces was a descendant of King David. While David's descendants were ruling several Israelite nations and empires in Asia, the reader should not assume that their reigns were always enlightened ones. David was given the blessing that his seed would perpetually have rulers over the 10 tribes of Israel. However, David's descendants were also under a curse. When David committed adultery with Bathsheba, remember this, David had fallen off just like Solomon and everything. They got trouble with the Most High. We know the story, right? So when David committed adultery with Bathsheba and afterwards arranged the death of her husband, Uriah, both acts were tremendous abuses of power. Nathan the prophet was sent by the Most High to deliver a curse upon David. In 2 Samuel 12:10, Nathan gave to David God's decree that the sword shall never depart from thine house. The sword symbolizes that death by violence and murder would be commonplace among David's descendants. Wow, you guys hear that? This curse began in David's own lifetime as Ammon, David's eldest son, was killed by Absalom, David's favorite son. Absalom was then killed during a rebellion against David, and another of David's sons, Adonijah, was killed by King Solomon, David's son, via Bathsheba. Are you guys hear this? Uncomfortable truth a lot of people don't speak on. This curse was also evident in the ruling house of Parthia. As we shall see in the next chapter, many of the Parthia's kings killed their royal relatives in order to eliminate potential rivals to the throne. Yet no matter how many murders the Arsacids or Arsacids perpetrate among themselves, the Parthians always insisted that their rulers had to be blood members of the Arsacid family. Parthia is an unusual case among the empires of the ancient world. While most empires had many different dynasties, Parthia's empire lasted almost 5 centuries and had only one dynasty. The ancient kingdom of Judah also had only one dynasty during its 4 centuries of independent existence. The dynasties of Judah and Parthia were both descended from King David. Unconditional promise. So was unconditional promise to the house of David was the reason for the unbroken dynasties in Judah and Parthia. So again, he quotes 2 Samuel 7:8-16 and Jeremiah 33:17. It says here, Parthia's Israelite crisis. Again, we are in the book, Parthia, the Forgotten Ancient Superpower and its Role in Biblical History by Stephen Collins. All right, we're going to continue here. It says here, Parthia's Israelite cities. One prominent Parthian city was named Asak, Isaac, literally, where Arsaces was crowned king. The name Asak clearly represents the name Isaac. The name Isaac had been attached to Sakae, Scythians, long before Parthia ever became independent. Strabo records that Alexander the Great noted a region named Asak Canus, which was traversed in Alexander's expedition to India. What India? India Superior, North America? The presence of the name of Isaac. Remember how close these places are, to the Bering Strait and going into America, right? The presence of the name of Isaac in both Parthian and Scythian context confirms the many secular accounts that they were related kinsmen. As further evidence of the Israelite origins of the Parthians, some Parthian cities were given Israelite names. An early capital of the Parthians was named Dara. That's a big one right there. That is Dara or Darda, the founder of Troy or progenitor of the Trojans, right? Which is the exact name of one of the patriarchs of the tribe of Judah. The Parthian province, so that was from 1 Chronicles 2:36. The Parthian province of Media, Atropatene, was located southwest of the Caspian Sea. The famous historian George Rawlinson records that in Parthian times, its chief city was Gaza. Listen, Gaza. The Gaza Strip was somewhere else. This city was apparently named after the Canaanite Philistine city of Gaza, which is mentioned often in the Bible. This further indicates that the inhabitants of Atropatene had come from Palestine, or the real Holy Land. 2 Kings 17:6 records that the Assyrians had placed Israelite captives in the cities of the Medes. So it is not surprising that we later find a city of the Medes bearing the name of a city of old Palestine. If the Parthian province of Hyrcania, located southeast of the Caspian Sea, we find that 2 of its chief cities or sites were named Samarian and Carta. All right, Carta, just like Carthage, Carta, or New City. These names are clear evidence of the presence of Israelites from the former 10-tribe kingdoms of Israel. Israel's capital city was named Samaria. And 2 Kings 17:6-7 records that its inhabitants, after a 3-year siege, were transplanted by the Assyrians into Asia after the city fell. Centuries later, we find a Parthian city, Samarian, bearing the name of the capital city of the former kingdom of Israel. Only displaced Israelites would name a city after the capital of the kingdom of Israel. The city name Karta bears the same Semitic root word that was present in the name Carthage. The word Karta or Kart are derived from the Hebrew word Kirjath or town or city and was documented previously. All right, and here's maps of that area, Caspian Sea. All right. There is even more evidence to support the Israelite origins of the Parthians. Initial Parthian coins were inscribed in Greek, but later Parthian coins bear Semitic inscriptions. The Parthian coins clearly depict their kings as having Caucasian features, thus the hijack supporting Semitic racial origin for the Parthian nation. So again, according to a lot of these people, Caucasian, whatever that is, they're saying that's the Hebrew look. That's the hijack, guys. Come on, like we know. First of all, if they were so numerous and scattered across the whole 4 corners, they wouldn't look the same, right? And we just saw many representations of them looking different. All right. Whether we look at their language, history, names, or faces, all hard evidence indicates Semitic origin for the Parthians, debunking baseless speculation that the Parthians were a Mongoloid Oriental race from the interior of Asia. All right, so definitely not Mongoloid. We can agree on that. It is a myth that the 10 tribes of Israel became lost after they relocated to Asia. Matthew 10:6 states that, Jesus Christ told his 12 apostles to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Biblical references to the house of Israel identify the 10 tribes of Israel, not the Jews who were called the house of Judah. All right, Jews are made up word, supposed to mean Judean or Judaic from the tribe of Judah, but it's not. Since Jesus Christ commissioned his apostles to go to the descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel, it is clear that Jesus knew that the Israelites could be found in specific homelands during his lifetime. So when you mean Jesus, do you mean Hosea or Jeshua from the Old Testament? Hosea did make that prophecy about it being so numerous. The apostles expressed no surprise at this commission, as not one of them said, "No one knows where the 10 tribes are, or they well all lost long ago." We have earlier seen the evidence that Josephus, who like the apostles lived in the 1st century AD, also did not regard the 10 tribes of Israel as lost. Indeed, he knew so much about their whereabouts and condition that he identified one of their physical borders, and as their population had become very numerous by his lifetime. While the previous book in this series, listen to this, guys, documented that some Israelites settled in Europe and the British Isles, right? We got the whole drop. The last, check out the last 10 videos, guys. North Africa and even North America. That's where they were coming from. You see it in reverse. The most numerous concentration of Israelites was in the vast Asian territories of the Parthians and Scythians, because neither Josephus nor Jesus Christ considered 10 tribes to be lost in the 1st century AD, and they referred to them as living in known geographical locations. It is apparent that the Asian locations of the 10 tribes of Israel were widely known among educated so-called Jews in the 1st century AD. All right, so now he's starting going to a lot of Christianity. So that's the hijack when you hear it. It is significant that the Apostle Peter wrote the book of 1 Peter from the city of Babylon. Babylon was a prominent city in the Parthian Empire during the apostolic era of the early Christian church. 1 Peter 5:13 indicates Peter had heeded Jesus Christ's instructions to go to the 10 tribes of Israel, as Peter declares that he wrote his epistle from the major city within the Parthian Empire. Historical accounts also assert that the Apostle Thomas traveled within Parthia. The early church historian Eusebius identified Thomas as an apostle sent to the Parthians and Andrew as an apostle sent to Scythia. All right. So guys, remember, the series the video, the Gospels according to Piso, right? The New Testament. Were these their real names, or were these Romans, Edomites? Who were these people going and preaching to these Asians? Huh? There are historical records which link the Apostle Thomas to the Parthian Saka king Gondophares, mentioned earlier. who reigned in ancient India. Jesus Christ had commanded the apostles to go to the dispersed members of the 10 tribes of Israel and their first priority before evangelizing the whole world. Why then would Peter, Thomas, and Andrew go to Parthia and Scythia unless their people were Israelites? Huh? Well, that's kind of like a conjecture. These people were evangelizing supposedly Gentile nations, right, too. It is also noteworthy that there were Parthian believers in the gods of Israel who made pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the annual holy days of God. Acts 2:110 states that the Parthians were present at the Pentecost day when the Holy Spirit was poured onto the apostles. All right, so again, we're reading about the New Testament here. We got Dutch to hijack. All right, the Medes, Elamites. Elam was the son of Shem. So this is what I'm saying. These are the Medes. They're saying separate. So these were Semitic peoples too. Dwellers in Mesopotamia, mentioned in Acts 2:9, had also come to Jerusalem from regions within Parthia's empire. Since part of the 10 tribes had settled in Media, 2 Kings 17:6, it is likely that many Medes who made the pilgrimage to Jerusalem were Israelites, and from the 10 tribes, many were. Some of these pilgrims were Jews living in Parthia, but many were not Jews. Verse 10 indicates that these pilgrims were the Jews and proselytes, non-Jews. Since Israelites from the 10 tribes were non-Jewish, the term proselytes could apply to them as well as to Gentiles. They mean not from the tribe of Judah. See, that word Jewish tries to get applied to the tribe of Judah and their descendants, but it really doesn't. That's what the Khazars eventually started calling themselves to try to connect themselves to the line of Judah. It is also noteworthy that the Apostle Peter, while delivering his Pentecost message to both Jews and the devout pilgrims who had come to Jerusalem from Parthian regions, addressed them both as men of Judea. All right, so again, that's the New Testament. What Peter? Jupiter, Peter, right? Parthia, the covenant kingdom. One more smoking gun. Piece of evidence concerning the Israelite nature of the Parthian Empire needs to be presented. This piece of evidence concerns the name Parthia itself. In the previous book in this series, it was documented that the Hebrew word for covenant, brat, remember that Briton is people of the covenant, the Barats in India, that's the same covenant people, was commonly used wherever the empire of Israel was dominant. That's a big one right there. That's what we're going to get into. Brutus or Brit. This Hebrew word formed the basis for regions colonized by Israel. Britain and Brittany, or for migrating groups of Israelites, Brittonic Celts. It was noted that the Phoenicians' Israelite city of Carthage placed the Hebrew word BRT or Brit for its coin. In the ancient world, the letters B and P were interchangeable. Both are phonetically similar, labial consonants. In his book, Phoenician Origin of Britons, Scots, and Anglo-Saxons, we're going to get into this book more. We've read a little bit from it. Going to read the whole book, hopefully, or as much as we can, right? From L.A. Waddell, who's the Phoenicians coming from America, right? It includes Israelites and those so-called Phoenicians. He points out that the Phoenicians interchanged the B's and the P's in various forms of the word Brit. He lists many ancient forms in which the root word Brit was expressed. Words such as Barat, is what I was saying, guys. Barat, just like in India, Rat, and Britannia are just a few examples of words based on the Hebrew word for covenant. All right, literally, guys, get that, clear. Briton, people of the covenant. Briton, a Briton means person or people of the covenant. Waddell notes the Phoenicians interchanged the B's and P's in the Mediterranean world and adds that the Phoenicians of Cilicia called the city of Tarsus Parthenia. Notice the similarity between the Phoenician Parthenia and the later Asian empire Parthia. Listen, guys, it's literally almost the same. It's the same word. So they can say that could be Parthia, covenant place. And it says here, Israelites, the covenant people. The Bible records that the tribes of Israel under Moses made a covenant with God, a promise, right, a contract. The Israelites retained the unique awareness that they were the covenant people as an enduring part of their culture. The Hebrew word for covenant, beret, was placed on people, places, and Phoenician, Carthaginian coins. The presence of the Hebrew word for covenant on ancient peoples or places is a strong identifier for locating where the 10 tribes of Israel migrated after leaving Palestine. Listed below are important examples. So it says here, Hebrew word for covenant without vowels, barat, barit, berith, barat, like ancient name of India, barat, brith, brit, or berith, birthright, birthright, literally. Tribal and place names associated with migrating Israelites. It says here, Briton, Breton, Britanni, Brittonic Celts, etc. Place names, Britannic Islands, Brytia or Petritia. Greek names, Britannic Islands or Parthia. Brytia is Parthia. It's the same word. That's what he's telling you. The Encyclopedia Britannica confirmed that the Greeks interchanged P's and B's, recording that the Greeks referred to the Britannic Isles, the British Isles, as the Britannic or Britannic Islands. All right, did you guys know that? Islet Samis, a 17th century British historian, also noted that the B's and the P's were easily convertible in ancient context. So how many times has that happened with different words and history and places and people? Imagine. Think about that. In ancient context, right? It changes everything. Since it is documented that the Greeks interchanged P's and B's, their accounts of Parthia could just as easily have been written as Parthia or Brytia. In these forms, the Hebrew word for covenant, Brit and Brith, is clearly evident, representing the B as a P, and was done in the ancient world. The consonants of Berith, the Hebrew word for covenant, become Parith, the exact consonants of the word Parthia. The identity of the Parthians is no longer a mystery. They were the covenant people of the 10 tribes of Israel, and their very name declared to the world that they were the covenant people. L.A. Waddell, the author of the book cited above, understood that words formed from the consonants BRT identified the Phoenicians, but he never grasped that the Phoenicians were the Israelites. I've been trying to tell you guys, or that the Brit word designated the covenant people. Since his book contains Aryan racial themes, pro-white, Waddell never saw this self-evident fact because he was a white supremacist, because he's pro-bias Aryan, what he thought was white, racial. That's why he's saying racial themes. Waddell never saw, and this is what we get in a lot of these authors in these books. That's why I say dodge the hijack. They try and put themselves into it, like they try to and make black skin inferior. Anyways, he also did not realize that the terms Jewish and Israelite were not synonymous. There you go. In the appendix in his book, Waddell includes the following notation and a historical chart. So that's why I kind of like stayed away from the book a little bit, but we're going to get into it for sure because we already at the point where we know how to dodge the hijack, right? We can use our discernment. Okay. As the reader now knows, the Israelites of the 10 tribes had left Palestine by 721 BC and were well established in the Black Sea region and the Russian steppes by 587 BC. The Israelites were long absent from Palestine or the Holy Land, America, by 587 BC. Waddell should have said that the Jews were carried into captivity because it was Judah that was carried captive by Nebuchadnezzar, right? It was only Judah and Benjamin that was left behind, not the other 10 tribes. So that was the lines of Pharez, and that's where Nebuchadnezzar, got Zedekiah, killed all his male heirs, killed Zedekiah, and only the daughters survived of this. And the daughters with Jeremiah fled into Ireland, remember? A modern epigrapher, Dr. Barry Fell. They go Barry Fell. Shout out to Barry Fell, for finding all these old world inscriptions, writing in the Americas and letting us know that it's a lot older, showing us that America is the true old world, more corroboration, even though he's seeing it in reverse, Barry Fell, but he has a really good book, America BC. So a modern epigrapher, Dr. Barry Fell, has also noted the interchangeability of the P's and B's in the ancient world. He gives the name P Celts to a group of Celts who use P and B interchangeably. These P Celts were the Brittonic Celts, and they gave birth to the Breton, Welsh, and Cornish languages, as well as the ancient Gaulish languages of Central and Eastern Europe. All right, that coming out of so-called Hebrew, guys. We broke it down. And why? Letting you know, Brittonic people of covenant, Bret, people of the covenant. Some ancient cultures interchange the letters P and B. Both are labial consonants with similar sounds. The Brittonic Celts, who settled in ancient Britain, were known as Pete Celts because of this trait. The ancient Greeks also manifested this trait, using the term Britannic Islands for Britannic Islands. Since the term Parthia has also come to us from early Greek writers, substituting a B for the initial P of this word results in Parthia or Parthia, a clear proclamation by the Parthians that they were the descendant from the covenant people of the 10 tribes of Israel. The Brittonic Celts were Israelites who, retaining the name of the covenant people, migrated westward toward the British Isles and Europe. The Israelites who migrated northward and eastward into Asia became the Iberians, the Scythians, and the Parthians. Therefore, we can see that the interchangeability of P's and B's accompanied the Israelites migrating both eastward and westward from ancient Palestine or ancient America, guys. Remember, every time he says Palestine, he just means the Holy Land, Jerusalem. In conclusion, let us briefly review the overwhelming evidence that the Parthians were Israelites of 10 tribes of Israel who had migrated to Asia. The Parthians were never recorded as being in Asia until after the 10 tribes of Israel relocated to Asia. The Bible records that these tribes were placed in the cities of the Medes. The Parthians' homeland adjoined the territory of the Medes. History records that the Parthians were first under the dominion of the Assyrians, and that we also the fate of those Israelites, and that was the fate of those Israelites taken captivity by the Assyrians. We can easily see that the names of the clans of Ephraim in the Parthian homelands and history is clear that the Parthians were the kinsmen of the Scythian Sacae, who were shown to be Israelites in the previous book. The Parthian cities of Asak, Dara, Gaza, Samarian all bore Hebrew names. Many groups from the Parthian Empire were among the worshippers of the God of Israel, who were in Jerusalem for a holy day of God, the first Christian Pentecost. The Parthians had many Hebrew Semitic words in their language and later placed Semitic inscriptions on their coins. The Parthian Arsaxid dynasty included the name of Isaac, and many individual kings had names that included the term Fares, right? That's the line of David, the line of Zedekiah, where the daughters came out of and ended up in Europe and met up with the line of Sarah, other Judah line, and fulfilled, got the lines together, connected the lines, right? Fulfilling God's promise to David that his descendants would perpetually serve as rulers over the 10 tribes of Israel. That scepter would always be with Judah. The very name Parthia preserves the Hebrew word Beret, with the B shown as P, proclaiming that they were the covenant people. The facts are clear. The Parthian Empire was an empire of Israelites who, having thrown off the dominion of their captors, were now ruling over their previous masters. If the history of the Parthian Empire was discussed in much depth in history texts, its Israelite origins would become obvious if they only, let us focus and research these people more clearly in history. It would have been obvious that they were Israelite. But we've got to remember that Israelite is not even supposed to be a real historical people. They want us to think that Israelites were just a Bible story. It's just a religion. And that's what I've been trying to tell you guys who are not into the whole Bible thing or just coming into this and you didn't grow up knowing all this stuff. You thought it was all just religion. That the Old Testament, guys, what they call the Torah, is history. It's a story of a real family. These people of the covenant, what they're talking about, these covenant people that made a promise to the Most High. That's their story in the Old Testament. And again, if this was followed up historically, not as religious, and not all this Christianity dogma and all that other stuff that's thrown onto us, perhaps we would have known, we would have seen, as he's saying here, obvious Israelite origins. Perhaps that is the reason why their history has been mostly deleted from history texts taught to the modern world. That's why they downplay it. That's why they want you to know more about Romans, so-called Greeks, and all this other stuff, which is a hijack. The secular modern world has a strong anti-biblical bias. This is what I was just saying. Because y'all think the Bible means religion. You know, that's what they made you think. So you don't know that there is history in there as well. And it does not want to find the lost 10 tribes because doing so would powerfully validate the Bible. All right. Not the whole, but that it is history, literally, that it is history. All right. And this is a drawing. It says in Gotarsis at Behistun. So, therefore, the true history of the mighty Phoenician, Carthaginian, Scythian, and Parthian empires have been mostly censored out of the historical record. These were Israelite nations, what he's trying to tell you. It is only a coincidence that the major world empires dropped from modern history texts are all Israelite empires. Is that a coincidence, guys? It's always been about Yasharallah. It's always been about Israel. And I've been wanting to say that, but people think I'm talking about religion. I'm religious. No, you guys don't get it. These are the covenant. These are the people who made a promise, an agreement with the Most High. Instead of teaching the facts about the major Israelite empires, history texts now include the fiction that Greece and Rome were the only world empires in ancient Egypt, right? And the only true civilized people in the ancient world, right? That's the hijack. You see, he's saying what I've been trying to tell you. It's been glorified. There was no so-called Greek or Rome, you know, like empire like that. They glorified it, guys. So fiction includes fiction. The texts of history include fiction that Greece and Rome were not only world empires and the only civilized people in the ancient world. As the famous British historian George Rawlinson noted in a quote at the beginning of this chapter, such a viewpoint is both false and defective. False history. While Rome dominated the Mediterranean region and much of Europe, the Parthian Empire dominated Asian territory between the Euphrates and Indus rivers and between the Persian Gulf to the Russian steppes inhabited by the Scythian tribes. The Parthian Empire stretched approximately 1,900 miles from east to west and 1,000 miles from north to south. Parthia and Rome interacted as equals, yet few in the modern world have ever heard of Parthia's great empire. To demonstrate how dramatically the history of the Parthian Empire has been deleted from the modern world's awareness, go to any encyclopedia you can find and look up Rome and look up Parthia. All right, he's just letting you know. Go verify. You're gonna see. Count the pages devoted to each empire, and you will see how little modern readers are allowed to learn about the history of Parthia. This the emphasis of Parthia's real role in history as a powerful rival to Rome is especially hard to justify when the classical Roman writers themselves wrote an immense amount of material about the power and scope of the Parthian Empire. So they're not even using the primary sources. Rome and Parthia of so-called Romans, right? Romans, so-called. Tag. Rome is a tag, guys. Greek is a tag. Rome and Parthia had major wars, summit conferences, and even period of detente. So we say Rome versus Parthia, we just talking about Edom, right? Edomite, Etruscans, Etrurian, like Edom versus Israelites. Literally, any detailed and honest comparison of the Roman Parthian empires will cause the reader to reconsider the question of which of these empires was barbarian and which one merits the term civilized, all right? Big one right there. The rarely revealed but true story of the ancient Israelite empire of Parthia will now be revealed in the following chapter. All right, so that's the end of today's reading. You know, that was chapter 1, all of that. These are some of the sources and footnotes. You know, he got, as you guys can see, he has a lot of sources. He's not just, you know, babbling and writing his opinions. He got a lot for you to verify. We're going to end it here. When it comes to this subject of the Parthians, I just wanted to show, you know, again, because we're talking about Israelites or Hebrew people in Asia and Europe. And so we got to have a full context and background. Again, I just wanted to emphasize this when it comes to the Sakae and also these regions and the Caucasus and Persia. All right, and even the word Iran, we found out today, is from Ephraim, Iran, one of his sons, right? So the next chapter of this book, let me see, it's chapter 2. It says Partha, the forgotten ancient superpower. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get that in another video. So make sure to tune in, subscribe, and like. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you're up to date, catch up on all the previous, so you can understand when we're reading new books, and you can use the previous information to relate what we're reading and new books and new videos. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this major drop. I thought it was really good. I actually had this book stored in one of my linked folders, bookmarked, like 3 or 4 years, and I just forgot about it. And as I'm doing this new research again, redoing we're going over the information about Israel and these nations, I ran into it again. I saw my notes, and I'm like, wow, let me just read this today, right now, because it just relates to what we just been learning recently. You know, it's only one truth, guys. I hope you guys are starting to see and have a clearer picture of certain nations, who they might be, not just the basic generalized mainstream false narratives we read in Wikipedia. As this guy told you, this, it's false. It's defective. It's not real. A lot of major drop. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading. Um, use it how you like, and hopefully it helps you. If you're into history like I am, to go ahead and have more of a clear foundation of the origin of certain nations and certain regions of the world, and how they relate with each other, why they're warring with certain other nations. It all starting to make sense. To me, it's really starting to make sense. And you can see that a lot of the history that we have is all about Yasharallah. It's literally all about uh, the people of the covenant, right? As they're called, the people of the covenant. This whole time. That was chapter 1, Parthia and the Israelite Empire rises in Asia. Shout out to everybody that tuned in to the live chat. Shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Shout out to all the new channel members. I'm gonna have more private videos, I promise you guys. Yeah. Thanks for again tuning in. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.